And what's even more interesting is that Diddy and Luigi's attorneys are married. Hello, welcome to Graceless Crimes. So, my name is Grace, and this is my channel based on true crimes of passion, panic, and pure foolishness. I will be sharing my personal opinions at the end, and if you want further information, I encourage you to conduct your own research and form your own conclusions and theories. All of the information I'm about to share is on very public media, so if you enjoy this content, like, comment, and subscribe, of course, and please hit that notification bell because sometimes YouTube doesn't really tell you when somebody puts a video out. It's December 4th, 2024, and Brian Thompson, CEO of UnitedHealthcare, was gunned down in front of the hotel Hilton Midtown, 6:45 in the morning. The assailant jumps on an e-bike, goes through Central Park, ends up 46 minutes after shooting this guy on the other side of town at Port Authority bus station. If you're familiar with Port Authority, you can go anywhere from Port Authority. You can go to Boston, you can go to Miami. You can figure out a way because there's buses. There's different companies that run through Port Authority. So there's like a manhunt on the whole East Coast, Northeast, tri-state area, okay? This guy has a mask on. He's got a backpack. He's got an e-bike. The shell casings have words on them that say delay, deny, depose. People have said that's what the health industry does. They delay your claim, they deny your claim, and then they throw it away. They dispose of it. So right now, everybody thinks it's a damn hit, okay? They call Brian's wife, obviously, or they get in contact with Brian's wife, and they're like, what the hell's going on? Has your husband had any threats? And she's like, of course he's had threats. He is the CEO of a healthcare company. He used to have security detail, but he didn't have it that morning because, again, it wasn't at like a big event, 6:45 in the morning at a shareholders meeting where they're going to go and they're going to talk about how much money the company made. Strange, right? So let's talk about who Brian is. Brian Thompson was a 50-year-old CEO of the largest American healthcare company, okay? He was born July 10th, 1974. He's originally from Ames, Iowa. He was born to two blue-collar parents. He has a brother. And after becoming the valedictorian of his high school and his college, very intelligent person, he went on to work for PricewaterhouseCoopers. And then he went on to, of course, work for UnitedHealthcare. And then towards the end of his career, he ran the Medicare and retirement business arm. Okay. The company that Thompson was running provides healthcare coverage to over 49 million Americans. And just for reference, so you can get a picture of what that looks like, that's more people than Spain, the entire country of Spain. So United is a top provider of Medicare Advantage plans, which are private versions of the government's Medicare program for people who are 65 and older. And they also sell individual employers and various state and federally funded Medicaid programs. So massive money. Again, for perspective, just the portion of the work that Brian was doing and the arm of the company that he took care of, $281 billion was made in revenue last year alone, making them the top earner with UnitedHealth Group. Now, Brian was making $10.2 million in total compensation that included salaries, stocks, and his bonus. He was actually one of the highest paid execs at the company, and he kept a fairly low profile, which again makes this whole thing weird as hell, right? Now, the only time that he had kind of been in the news was in 2021 when UnitedHealthcare was actually criticized for a plan to start denying payment for what it deemed non-critical visits to hospital emergency rooms. And the chief executive of the American Hospital Association actually wrote a letter to Brian Thompson saying that, quote, patients are not medical experts and they should not be expected to self-diagnose during what they believe is a medical emergency. Threatening patients with financial penalty for making the wrong decision could have chilling effect on seeking emergency care. End quote. Period. So then UnitedHealthcare responds by saying, never mind, we're not going to do that. We're going to delay that rollout.
Who had been saying that? Who said that?
They don't do the change. So we're going to go go through some of the things that UnitedHealthcare has had controversies around to get a bigger understanding of why the public responded the way that it did, okay? Again, understanding of why the public responded the way that it did, not so much my personal opinion. So some of the UnitedHealthcare controversies that happened in the recent years, just in the last couple of years, okay, were one, they had like faulty AI denials because UnitedHealthcare created this AI algorithm that had a 90% error rate and they were denying medically necessary coverage to elderly patients. The lawsuit claims that the AI model known as NH-Predict was wrongfully denying claims, causing financial and medical hardships for patients unnecessarily. Then, in February 2024, there was a data breach. UnitedHealth Group's subsidiary, Change Healthcare, suffered a massive ransomware attack, and the cyber attack actually affected over 100 million individuals, making it one of the largest healthcare data breaches in history. Data that was stolen was personal information, med records, and financial details. And I do believe that UnitedHealthcare did pay out for that, like paid ransom for that information. Then there was a contract impasse with health partners. This year, 2024, actually last year, right, UnitedHealthcare made headlines for its impasse it reached with health partners, where health partners said they were no longer going to accept UnitedHealthcare insurance, and they left 30,000 people in limbo. These people were retirees, okay? Now, the real kicker was the insider trading. So we're going to get into that. So Brian Thompson, the fourth one, was that Brian Thompson was actually mentioned in a UnitedHealthcare insider trading, okay, situation. The City of Hollywood Firefighters Pension Fund filed a class action lawsuit against UnitedHealthcare executives, including the late CEO Brian Thompson, saying, listen, you and your little friends are actually engaging in insider trading because they sold millions of dollars worth of stock after they learned that the Department of Justice had an antitrust investigation into UnitedHealthcare's acquisition of Change Healthcare. The reason why it was considered insider trading is that the sale of the stocks was made before the information was made public to its investors, okay? So you have sold stocks before the investors have even known that the DOJ is about to investigate the company. More than $120 million of personally held UnitedHealthcare shares were sold. Thompson actually sold about $15 million worth of shares alone. Now, the pension fund also claims that this insider trading caused financial losses for the fund because the decline of UnitedHealthcare's stock price happened when they sold all those shares. And the lawsuit was seeking compensatory damages and class action status to represent all purchasers of UnitedHealth stock during the specified period. Another thing to note about UnitedHealthcare is that they're known to deny about 30% of folks' claims at that time. So, you know, they're not looking too hot right now. Now we're at December 9th. A person who's in McDonald's, and it's not very clear if it was somebody who was eating at the McDonald's or somebody who worked at the McDonald's, sees somebody in the corner eating a hash brown. I know it sounds so crazy, but that's what was happening, who looks like the person who killed Brian Thompson. They call the police, and the police come and say, hey, have you been to New York? According to the reports, the person gets nervous, they start shaking, whatever. They arrest the guy. The individual who called the police apparently may or may not get a $60,000 reward because they were supposed to call the FBI tip hotline like they had the freaking number on phone dial, like speed dial, like stop. Anyway, New York City Police Commissioner, Jessica Tisch, makes an announcement that 26-year-old Luigi Mangione was first considered a person of interest, was arrested in Altoona, Pennsylvania on firearms charges. And it's so weird because Altoona, again, if you know Altoona, it's like a really small town. It's on the outskirts. It's like, I would say it's like 45 minutes out of State College, Pennsylvania, where Penn State is. And it's just a random place for him to be. He was allegedly found with a 3D printed gun, multiple fake IDs. There was journals also reportedly discovered where he apparently conveys his hatred of the healthcare system. And who is this guy? Who is this person? Okay. So Luigi Nicholas Mangione was born on May 6, 1998. from Townsend, Maryland. He actually comes from a really, really wealthy family. They're a prominent Italian-American family known for their wealth and philanthropy. His grandfather, Nicholas Mangione, was a well-known figure in Baltimore, and his grandmother, Mary, was also really well-known. Luigi went to Gilman School in Baltimore. He also graduated as valedictorian in 2016, and his school is pretty notable. One of the people who went there was C. Justin Brown, who was the criminal defense attorney for Adnan Syed from the Serial podcast and from that true crime case as well. Mangione goes to get a bachelor's of science in computers and a master's in science in engineering, and from UPenn. So he's really smart as well. He's really wealthy, right? So the pieces are not, the math is not mathing at some point, right? So before his arrest, he worked for TrueCar. It's like a retail website that sells and buys cars, and he was a data engineer there. So he also had a background in AI. He hadn't worked there since 2023. He actually went to go to Hawaii to live in a surfing community, and it was called Surf Break. But then he left because he had a really, really bad back injury. And there's some photos online, and I will post the photos of what people are saying are Luigi's screws in his back and his spine. So he had some injuries to his lower lumbar, and then he started to withdraw from friends and family after that point. He made the difficult decision to undergo the spinal surgery for the chronic back pain and became kind of a proponent for this procedure. And there are Reddit posts from him saying this has changed my life. I think he says, I was shocked that by day 7, I was literally on 0 pain meds. He writes in August 2023, allegedly. He also says, obviously it'll be a while before I can get into rigorous activity, but way less of a big deal than I anticipated. So he was a proponent for people getting this, surgery, and how helpful it was to him. The only thing people don't really know is what was Luigi's mental state, from the time that he stopped talking to his family, pulling away from them after the surgery, to July 2024, when his mother stopped hearing from him. He started to withdraw from his family during that time, and then his friends even was looking for him on X, repeatedly reaching out and getting no response. In November of 2024, his family reported him missing to the San Francisco, California authorities because the mother was like, listen, I haven't heard from my son since July 2024. Also, there are reports that Luigi was posting on Reddit about experiencing severe brain fog and restless sleep. His grades had been suffering a little bit, but he ultimately, graduated from school. So he was having some issues, but nothing that was nothing that leads to this, I guess is what I'm trying to say, okay? Now, the New York Times reported that Mangione was carrying a handwritten manifesto that criticized healthcare companies for putting profits above care. And so he was arrested on gun charges in Pennsylvania, where he ended up getting extradited to New York after. And we'll talk about that next. Over on Goodreads, which is a platform where you can talk about the books you've read, or rate them, put your opinions on them, he talked about another person who had a penchant for manifestos, Ted Kaczynski, the Unabomber. He gave the Unabomber's manifesto, which is called The Industrial Society and Its Future by Theodore Kaczynski, 4 stars. And he said that, he essentially calls Ted Kaczynski a violent individual who's rightfully imprisoned, but also an extreme political revolutionary. What's interesting is that he talks about the fact that when all other forms of communication fail, violence is necessary to survive. It feels like a huge jump from who he was and who he grew up as to where he is now. It feels like a huge jump. So what's throwing everybody for a loop is, again, his family was really, really wealthy. They were rich, okay? They owned multiple golf courses, which, again, I didn't even know you could own golf courses, but who the hell am I? And they also were into real estate, including nursing homes. His grandparents started a business empire after growing up in the Little Italy section of Baltimore. They made a name for themselves. Nicholas and Mary Mangione in 1978 purchased the Turf Valley Country Club, Then in 1986, purchased the Hayfields Country Club in Hunt Valley. They also owned a very well-known conservative radio station in their area. Luigi's cousin is a damn Republican Maryland delegate, Luigi Mangione, who brought back or wanted to bring back the death penalty in Maryland very recently. Okay, so rich conservative. Huh? That's what we're all saying at this point. The family foundation, okay, has $4.5 million in assets. Luigi's father runs the business, okay? The family has a damn pool facility at Loyola University named after them. Luigi's sisters are prominent in their own right. He's got one sister who is a medical doctor, and the other one is an artist for a very large media publication. And I guess the overall feeling is like, how could somebody with so much access to privilege and wealth give a shit about others so much that he would do something like this in the name of justice, okay? His family is described as very generous. They're self-made. Luigi was described as clever, approachable, handsome. There's even a plaque at the Family Center, the Greater Baltimore Medical Center, that reads, donated by Nicholas and Mary Mangione, okay? Big money, woke up. It doesn't make sense, all right? Let's get into the manifesto, the extradition, and like all the things that are happening right now. He was charged in the Pennsylvania courtroom with forgery, possession of a firearm without a license, tampering with records or identification, possession of instruments of a crime, and then providing false ID to law enforcement authorities, okay? They find his manifesto. That was actually difficult to find because a lot of publications did not want to post it for whatever reason. I have it here. It's very short. Ken Klippenstein was the first person to publish it. And it says, to the feds, I'll keep this short because I do respect what you do for our country. To save you a lengthy investigation, I state plainly that I wasn't working with anyone. This was fairly trivial. Some elementary social engineering, basic CAD, a lot of patience. The spiral notebook, if present, has some straggling notes and to-do lists that illuminate the gist of it. My tech is pretty locked down because I work in engineering, so probably not much info there. I do apologize for any strife or traumas, but it had to be done. Frankly, these parasites simply had it coming. A reminder, the U.S. has the #1 most expensive healthcare system in the world, yet we rank roughly 42 in life expectancy. United is the blank largest company in the U.S. by market cap, only behind Apple, Google, Walmart. It has grown and grown, but as has our life expectancy? No. The reality is these indecipherable have gotten simply too powerful, and they continue to abuse our country for immense profit because the American public has allowed them to get away with it. Obviously, the problem is more complex, but I do not have space, and frankly, I do not pretend to be the most qualified person to lay out the full argument. But many have eliminated the corporation, corruption, and greed, e.g. Rosenthal more decades ago, and the problem simply remains. It is not an issue of awareness at this point, but clearly power games at play. Evidently, I am the first to face it with such brutal honesty. So, a lot to be said there. There's a lot of back and forth about him being extradited at the time because his attorney felt like he wouldn't get a fair trial. And there was even some commentary that his case has like a high risk of jury nullification because of the popularity surrounding him. Like, social media blew up. There was a lot of support. There was a lot of criticism. And some people say he's a hero. Some people are posting him as Jesus. It's a lot. Other people say he's a criminal. And that at the end of the day, regardless of how he feels about the healthcare system, he should go to jail. The perp walk. The perp walk was a lot, okay? The perp walk looked like a scene out of The Joker. It was unnecessary. He gets flown out of a helicopter. He's walking with the chains. We've got all these people around him. It's really very odd, okay? Very odd, in my opinion, all right? So we have heavily armed officers, a very slow escort. Eric Adams, who's a Democrat, mayor of New York City, is there. Claims he attended the perp walk because he wanted to look Mangione in the eye and send a strong message. Well, Luigi's attorney, Karen Friedman Agnofolio, was like, look, this is the worst perp walk I've ever seen. She goes, quote, "There was no reason for the NYPD and everybody to have this big assault rifles that frankly I had no idea was in their arsenal. And to have all this press here, the media there, it was perfectly choreographed." She also said, and I love this part, "The mayor should know more than anyone of the presumption of innocence that he too is afforded when dealing with his own issues." Ooh, girl. He's being treated like political fodder. The mayor should know about due process given his own problems. I think he was there to try to take away from those issues. He wanted to show symbolism, but my client is not a symbol. Love that for her, okay. Social media blew up. A bunch of protesters came and appeared in 11-degree weather to show their support of the alleged killer and also their disdain for the American healthcare system, talking about the inequality and distrust of the media as well. There was a woman who's about 26 from Queens. She talked about how she fell off her parents' healthcare and couldn't get COBRA coverage. She was uninsured for months and spent months on the phone with the healthcare company on 3 different phones just trying to get access to these people. They put me through circles and circles and circles, she said. I also did a survey of people, and about 70% of people in this survey of 1,000 said that they don't believe that Mangione is all fully responsible for this murder, and that there's other reasons at play, including profits or coverage denials by health insurance bear a great deal or moderate amount of responsibility. Do with that what you will. Social media also ran wild. There was a flurry of stories that came out, people describing their own personal stories and frustration and rage over medical claim denials. I had my surgery 2 days before it was scheduled. This is about UnitedHealthcare. I was in the hospital finance office in tears when I was supposed to be in the hospital doing pre-op stuff. One user wrote an ex post that received 70,000 likes. My mother was flying out to see me. My surgeon spent a day and a half pleading my case to United when she probably should have been taking care of other patients, she added. She called the process torture, even though she did get the surgery. Another person said my breast cancer was denied by a different insurance company. Breast cancer, she asked me, well, is it an emergency? The response was, I don't know. It's fucking cancer. What do you think? I had to appeal, and luckily it went through. Evil to do that to people. Other users expressed some sympathies for Thompson and his family, saying the worst part of the video showing the death of the UnitedHealthcare CEO is now his kids will forever have their dad's death online. Sometimes the internet is just plain awful. Now, okay. So we have Luigi facing 11 state charges, including first-degree murder and furtherance of terrorism, which is wild that they're charging him with terrorism. Mangione was charged in New York with second-degree murder originally and 3 counts of illegal weapons possession and forgery. But because of the terrorism charge, they changed it to first-degree murder. Okay, they had him in court. He pled not guilty, and his attorney is like, this is going to be a hot mess. Now, let's talk about Luigi in prison. Luigi's really liked in prison. He's at a holding center currently in New York. When he was in Pennsylvania, he was sharing his commissary with folks. They liked him. It was really interesting to hear. Now, let's talk about Luigi in prison. Luigi is very liked. Okay? When Luigi was over in the Huntington State Correctional Institute in Pennsylvania, he was sharing his commissary with folks. They liked him. They gave him a haircut. It called it his glow up before he had to do his perp walk. A close source to Mangione said that he was actually extremely aware of the massive fan base he had and that he was shocked and choked up, and it gave him confidence and reassurance that he'll be okay. There's actually a News Nation interview with the host Ashley standing outside the prison at the time, and she's talking to them through the TV. So they see her live and she's asking him questions. And she's saying, please say yes or no to this. Please say yes or no to that. It was a really crazy interview. And at one point they even screamed free Luigi, which is so interesting because they didn't say free me, free us. They said free Luigi. And I think that just says a lot about the kid's character right now.
Ask the guys if they can hear me right now to answer yes or no very loud. Does Luigi have television in his single cell?
No.
Unreal. They said no, right?
Now, There are still 26 million people without health insurance in the United States, even though Barack Obama pushed reform with the Affordable Health Care Act, also known as Obamacare, because I know some people are confused about that. And it's a huge problem that leads to about 45,000 deaths annually. More than half of insured individuals encounter problems as insurance companies frequently deny coverage for expenses, often relying on algorithms to make these decisions, okay? That leads to something that some of you don't know about because you don't live in the US: medical bankruptcy. Yes, we in the US can go bankrupt because we got sick. Currently, Luigi is at the Metropolitan Detention Center in Sunset Park, Brooklyn, which is very well known for its troubled history. We have Sean Diddy Combs, who's actually sharing space with Luigi, awaiting trial for his RICO and sex trafficking case set for May of 2025. And what's even more interesting is that Diddy and Luigi's attorneys are married. They're both represented by the same New York law firm. So Karen Friedman Agnifilo is Mangione's attorney, and her husband, Mark Agnifilo, represents Combs. The Metropolitan Detention Center has previously housed some more high-profile inmates such as Sam Bankman-Fried, Ghislaine Maxwell, and of course R. Kelly. So apparently Diddy's mad that Luigi murdered someone and is being seen as a hero while he's getting treated, I guess, differently or less than. His ego at 54 years old in prison is still large, okay?
Oh! I'm a savage! Whatever I want, I'm going to get! Whatever I want, I have to get!
It says that Mangione is also apparently loved by the prisoners in this detention center, same as when he was in Pennsylvania. And he's not having a difficult time dealing with everything because he's gotten so much support from prisoners who've also been sharing their stories about inadequate health care, either to themselves or their loved ones. So they apparently have not seen each other in the detention center because they do have the alleged killer, Luigi Mangione, in solitary while Diddy is actually out with Gen Pop. But he's still very mad. So what happens next? Okay, so right now he's still being held without bail in the Brooklyn Metropolitan Detention Center, and the prosecutors have indicated that the federal and state cases are going to be parallel because he has state charges that are going to reach trial first, and then they're going to do the federal case. The next court appearance is scheduled for February 21st, and then they'll make their next moves on the cases. His attorney is also receiving letters from people asking to pay for his case, which he clearly doesn't need because his family has bread. And they have even mentioned his name on Saturday Night Live, where it received applause. Problem is that the positive public opinion for Luigi raises the possibility that there's going to be jury nullification. What jury nullification means is when a jury declines to convict a defendant despite an overwhelming evidence of guilt. And this can be seen differently, but the reason for it is civil disobedience, or people are kind of making a political statement against a specific law because they're showing empathy for the criminal, the alleged criminal. So it's going to be really interesting to find a jury that is not affected by the United States healthcare system. So I'm really interested to see how they solve this, and when they're doing the voir dire process where they choose jurors, how they're going to find people who really are, what question are they going to have to ask people in the voir dire process to kind of get people who are kind of neutral about this. So what happens next? I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to find a juror that's not going to be for, him and ultimately nullify the situation. I don't know if they're going to be able to try it fairly and quietly. I think it's going to be a huge media frenzy. CEOs have been hiding their faces on their websites. They have been a little bit more adamant about having security detail. Obviously, I would be too, child. And hopefully we see a quick resolve to this because we don't need this on the news all day. There's a lot of nonsense going on, and I don't think that this should be on the forefront, okay? This was a one-off incident, and hopefully it doesn't happen again. But hopefully the conversation can be spoken about in regards to the disparity in healthcare, the fact that people are getting denied while they're on the operating room table. I hope the conversation shifts to not just talking about why did this rich kid do this, to how can we stop this from happening again? Why are people angry about healthcare? Do we need healthcare reform? Okay. Anyway, thank you for listening. Like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.